All right, for our really quick review for this last section of videos. How many fecal coliforms are permitted in Kentucky's recreational waters during the swimming season? And then the next question was, how many E. coli are permitted in Kentucky and most U.S. inland recreational waters? So the fecal coliform standard's kind of going out. It's gone from most places, but it was 200 colony forming units per 100 mils. So with regards to E. coli, we don't like to see any E. coli in our drinking water, but you should ask yourself, how many are we allowed to see? Are we allowed to see any? Are we allowed to see 1, 2, 5, 10, 100, 200, 500? How many can we see in our inland waters? And the correct answer is 235 colony forming units per 100 mils. With regard to the Vice video, there's going to be some video questions that you should be able to answer upon watching that video. So Enterococcus, they don't require as many of those because those indicate more illness at lower levels. All right, next, is E. coli correctly displayed in this question? So does that look correct? And if you answered yes, this is correct, this is wrong. Why? Because it's not italicized. All right, what are some examples of some pathogens that could make people sick? So we didn't cover all the major pathogen sources, so I'm going to pull those up real quick. So when people go swimming in untreated waters, they may get sick from some different organisms. So most of the sicknesses that exist in the United States from swimming actually come from pools. Most of the outbreaks come from pools. And that's because probably that's where the majority of exposure happens, and pools are not as diluted. Now, with regards to the pools, the number one culprit is often the parasitic organism Cryptosporidium. When we start looking at the untreated water outbreaks, like our swimming beaches and lakes and oceans even, it's a little more mixed. The parasite Cryptosporidium is not as important. It's predominantly norovirus, the number one cause of diarrheal illness worldwide, particularly from food. Norovirus is also the number one culprit of illness from our beaches, lakes, and rivers. E. coli, the toxic type, aren't far behind. And then unidentified, so a lot of things we don't know. The actually unidentified is the one that leads the pack. And some people have speculated that these are mostly viruses, enteroviruses and norovirus. So what's the number one known cause of untreated waterborne disease outbreaks? Norovirus. And swimming pools, treated water, what's the number one cause? And the number one cause is the parasite, particularly the parasite Cryptosporidium. So what are some pathogens that can make people sick from swimming in a lake? You can say norovirus, toxic E. coli. Those are just a couple. What else could make people sick other than bacteria? What else could make us sick from recreational waters? So cyanobacteria. So those another one. All right, are fecal coliforms, or even most E. coli, are they pathogens? And most of them are not pathogens. Most of them are not going to make us sick. So why do we measure them? We measure them because they indicate that fecal contamination is present. Now, fecal matter itself does not make people sick. It's if a person's been sick and they're shedding fecal matter, then if that contains a pathogen like Salmonella, Campylobacter, Norovirus, or many of the other ones, then it can make us sick. So the E. coli and the fecal coliforms, for the most part, are not pathogenic. But there are a few types of E. coli that are, and there's a whole lot of other things that are in fecal matter from sick persons that can make people sick, and from also animals. All right, are E. coli a type of total coliform? Are E. coli a fecal coliform? Are E. coli a bacteria? And yes, yes, and yes. And then other than bacteria, what else can make us sick other than bacteria? So we already mentioned viruses like norovirus, parasites like Cryptosporidium. Those are just a few of them. There's a variety of other ones. So let's do some other questions. How many E. coli are permitted in most U.S. inland recreational waters? So what's the limit? 235 per 100 mils. 235 per 100 milliliters of water in our recreational waters. We don't want to see any in a swimming pool. It should be 0 because it should have chlorine. But in our inland waters, our lakes and rivers, there should be none. All right, is the bacteria name above displayed correctly? So is E. coli displayed correctly? The answer should be no. That should be lowercase. And not just lowercase, it should also be what? Italicized. True or false? All fecal coliforms are pathogens. So every bacteria that lives in our gut is a pathogen? No. All fecal coliforms, are they pathogens? No. Fecal coliforms are an important part of the gut microflora for all animals and people. So they are not pathogens. They are indicative. They indicate that pathogens may be present if we find them in the water. So name something other than bacteria that can make us sick in recreational water. So you could say the cyanobacteria, but they're kind of bacteria. But viruses and parasites are just a couple examples. All right, so that's all on the recreational water section. You should be familiar with all the questions, all the review questions, because this is all fair game for your exam information. So I'll stop here. If you have questions, you can reach out to me. Thank you.